Welcome, all. This is episode 4 of Working Women, a podcast covering career readiness, job hunting best practices, and how to overcome obstacles, particularly as women in the workplace. I'm Neera Doss-Berner, the executive director of the Cabell County Medical Society, which is a community network of doctors serving West Virginia. And my co-host is Heather Kazad, founder of Kazad Events and Communications, who helps nonprofits and small businesses in the Washington, D.C. area reach their audience through events and marketing. Hi, Heather.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us. If you're new to Working Women, we hope these conversations resonate with you and motivate you to take a chance on yourself. Up until this point, we've talked about the process of getting a job, but now I think we need to talk about the other 90% of our working lives. How do you grow? How do you pivot? How do you negotiate from within an existing role? Those are the topics we're covering today and throughout upcoming episodes.
This discussion is for everyone because even if you have a career you love with tons of upward mobility, you still have to learn how to move upward. I'm not pointing fingers here, but men tend to get more promotions and more raises. There's evidence that's due to managerial bias in a lot of cases, but in the interest of fairness, I think sometimes, hear me out, sometimes it's because women are less comfortable asking for more. We are typically more risk averse. Like in episode 2, I talked about how women apply for jobs when they meet more than 80% of the qualifications. It's still that mindset playing out in a different scenario. And listen, I fully support not jumping into something when you're unqualified. That's the responsible choice. But what about when you are qualified? You're just afraid. That's where we come in. Neera and I are here to give you a little push. Guys, you too, if you're more humble than others, this is for everybody. I was just kind of giving statistical evidence of what we were dealing with usually.
Exactly. This is for everyone, but we do focus on women in the workplace, so fair. Should we start at the beginning? Let's say you're a finalist for a position and it's looking good. When do you start talking numbers? Should you accept whatever they offer?
If salary and benefits weren't listed in the job description from the start, you should definitely know what they're offering by the final round of interviews. If, however, you are selected and you get an offer letter that doesn't match your expectations, that's when you have that conversation. I didn't know this in my first office job. Most people don't. We usually accept whatever they offer those first few times because we're just happy to be moving forward. But we've got bills. They're multiplying and I'm losing control. Yeah, so that was a play on lyrics from the musical Grease for all of you youngsters.
And it was a good one, too.
Thank you, thank you. It's not a Heather Neera conversation without a musical reference, and I feel obligated to make that happen, but it fit there. The people demand it.
They really
Um,
do.
you can tactfully negotiate salary and benefits after being chosen, but before you sign a contract. Again, there shouldn't be any surprises by that point, but let's say they gave you a range early on and you expect the middle or high end, but they offer the low end. Bring this to their attention and provide a counter offer. Something like, thank you so much for the offer. I'm really excited about this position, but due to the market rate of similar roles and my experience, a starting salary of X would be fair while staying within the budgeted range you provided earlier.
Again, that's a wonderful way to word that. I love that you give the formula for how to ask these tough questions in professional lingo. That is brilliant for us formula thinking people. Now, what if the employer says no?
I mean, that's certainly possible. Either way, it's a risk. You need to be respectful, show your excitement, and indicate how much you want to work with them, but back up your claim with sources like your background and the going market rate. They'll say yes, no, or let me see what I can do. Most employers expect a counteroffer, but they won't just hand you money if you don't ask for it. If they say no, you have to decide if you walk away or continue haggling. If the salary is capped for some reason, try for more annual leave, a commuter stipend, flexible schedule, or some other benefits to sweeten the deal.
Now, that's good advice. Thank you for that, Heather. I mean, you always give good advice, but that's awesome. I hadn't actually thought of that about, just
Other
asking
things
for,
could work too.
yeah,
Yeah.
other benefits. Oh, yeah. Good job. You're so brilliant. When are other good times to negotiate salary and or benefit changes?
The absolute best opportunity is when you're getting hired for a new job. It's a new company, you're setting the standard early, and they want you happy because they spent a lot of time finding you. That said, you can broach these conversations during any performance review. Again, I'd say come prepared with data backing up your claims.
When you're looking to negotiate a salary, while it's tempting to look and see what the first Google result suggests is the typical pay, you need to think of your expertise. Look
Mhm.
at the market rate for your area. Perhaps look somewhere else if the market in your area is low. Think about how you specifically are a perfect fit for this job. For instance, remember to think of why you are very qualified for the job in the first place. Remind them of your successful rate of click throughs, perhaps. Are you looking to show you can go viral on social media? Hint, it's not that hard, just like most things, it's a formula. Then you reference the projects where you did succeed at doing the thing. Anytime you are asking for money, you don't want to look silly. Know exactly what you are asking for, your messaging, and how you want the employer to look at you after as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good idea to have those things ready for any performance review, but if you plan on making some requests, be confident in the value you provide. Do your research so that you know what you're asking for is fair. And once again, be ready to haggle if they challenge your offer. When we decided to do this podcast, I had a few people in mind who I wanted to reach, who I wanted to help, or wish I had helped in hindsight. And one of those people is my younger cousin. A couple Christmases back, she told me about her first office job right out of college. And she let it slip all these really toxic work practices that they had. She didn't have a signed contract. She didn't know how many vacation days she got or how quickly they accrued. She needed a doctor's note just for being sick for some reason, for any sick days that she took. She didn't get much job training. The list was very long. And I was probably yelling by the end of it because I kept hearing things that I hated. But she just didn't know what to ask or what to expect. And they took advantage of her. Um, I gave her some talking points and a toolkit to utilize going forward, but so much damage was done. Thankfully, she left that job shortly after that conversation, and now she's in a place that's much more acceptable, and she also knows like what to do in those situations.
Well, I'm so glad that that happened for her because there are so many times it doesn't because we
Yeah.
are not told. We just, we aren't told and we aren't coached about how these things go. I've been told in different positions the worst advice. I remember one time when I was working somewhere and they asked me to have a better car. They couldn't pay me more, but they wanted to show that they take care of their own. A better way to look at that would be to pay your labor enough to afford a fancy car if that's what you want to project to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very cautious about sales jobs now because so much of it is based on appearance, not about how much they actually pay.
Yeah, and I think your experience, my cousin's experience, I think it's way too common. And this is why we're here. This is why we're talking about advocating for yourself today specifically. Friends, insist on detailed contracts. Ask for an employee handbook. Be clear about protocol. And most importantly, understand the labor laws in your state. While we're at it, It is not against the law to discuss wages with coworkers. You can volunteer that information to whoever you choose, and employers only tell you otherwise to prevent you from finding discrepancies. They are protecting themselves. So don't get mad at a coworker who makes more than you, but work with them to make your case for a raise. Personally, I'm a strong union supporter. I know that's not as popular as it used to be, but keep in mind how much collective bargaining has gotten us over the years. By banding together, you can negotiate wins across the board like pay raises, better benefits, retirement funds, flexible hours, and more. We're stronger together. It's easier and more productive to negotiate as a team than individuals. So if you have the opportunity, I strongly encourage you to do so. And to be clear, there are good bosses out there. There are great workplaces and wonderful coworkers. But I want you to be mindful of the tricks some bad actors pull and be prepared to protect yourself because knowledge is power.
Amen to that. I know we say research a lot, but here I am going to say it again. The internet is a vast treasure trove of information. All it takes is a single search. Look at this company's turnover rates. Research who you will be joining. Do you think you will mesh well with the community? Anytime you are going to join an organization, you need to remember you are getting a job, but you'll be working with a team, and it's always best to stick together. Use the buddy system.
So, what about going beyond the financial aspect? Do you actually like the ins and outs of your job? Are you challenged, fulfilled, learning, growing? Are there aspects you could do better? Or maybe you have a new idea you want to pitch to leadership. Keep an eye on professional development opportunities. Consider taking on some training or new certifications. Even if you don't plan on changing roles, every industry progresses over time. Your job is to do your work and keep up with the changes.
I love what you mentioned there because it's very, very important. Um, so many times I see people great at their job finding it difficult to perform. Why? Because they weren't able to keep up with technology. Unfortunately, no matter what realm you are in, technology is going to be a part of your job now.
Mhm.
And continuing education, whether it's doing traditional courses or taking some classes here and there, learning can only ever help you. Investing in your education also makes you look driven and constantly on the push to be better. And that's somebody I'd want on my team.
Mhm. The most successful people are lifelong learners. If you want to explore new opportunities at work, ask for slight restructuring of responsibilities to keep from getting overwhelmed. Employers love to give extra work to their go getters without taking anything away. Find a balance that suits you and doesn't overburden anyone else on your team. This is probably a good time to talk about burnout. Yes?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at the Goldilocks situation here. On one side is a boring and unfulfilling status quo. On the other is overworked and stressful burnout. Ideally, we know ourselves well enough to split the difference, but it's not always in our control. If you perform well, you're rewarded with more responsibilities, and sometimes it's too much. Advocate for yourself. Find compromises with leadership. Counter offer ways to get things done while sharing the load. Neera, have you experienced burnout with work, school, or something? You can omit names to protect the guilty if you'd like.
Well, you know what? I am a mom, so
Yeah.
there can be mom burnout too. Also,
Mhm.
I mean, it's hard. I think if you are doing any job to the best of your extent, you are constantly walking that line of burnout. Um, and I still struggle with this, with my career, with everything. And I think that is okay to acknowledge that I struggle with that and that I have to manage myself better to keep that from happening. I have to take time for myself to do my stretches,
Yeah.
to do my, to eat, to drink my water. That is something that I have to do or I will get burnt out. Um, so I think that no matter what you're doing, you're going to be fighting that line of am I burnt out or am I doing my best, you know? And I think everybody has to find that line. I hope I find mine someday. That's what I'm going to end it with.
It changes, right? Like your best day to day differs. Sometimes you're capable of doing 100%. Sometimes you're capable of doing 70%. That is still your best on that day. So even if your best today wasn't as good as your best yesterday, I don't want you to get mad at yourself about it. And also, I think leadership in working environments need to understand that as well. Most of them do, because they're also human. So this is a balancing act that we always have to face kind of in our working life, especially women who take on too much. But I want people to be mindful. I want people to be reflective and to take time to think about, what is my body telling me right now? What am I experiencing? Am I too stressed? And the issue with burnout is that long term, it causes even more damage. So you have to be mindful of that because it's not just a sprint, sometimes it's a marathon. So, what about the other side of that coin? Neera, have you ever been underutilized and got bored?
Well, yes, I have. I am not wanting to be negative at all about my high school because I loved my high school. There were a lot of really good things about it. I had a lot of really good teachers. So just put that as an aside for that. Um, but by one specific teacher, I was told I wasn't smart enough for the honors classes, even though I was doing great in most of them. But that one teacher had me removed from the program, and I just stopped caring about academics after that. I barely went to school because I had lost the classes that I had found challenging. All my friends were in honors classes, and they were all doing their honors homework, and I would just help them because I was just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I started doing, helping other people with their homework was because I wasn't in these classes, but I wanted to be. So I feel like I got to take some of the classes that some of our friends did. Um, but I, but I wasn't ever, in the class. I was just trying to be a part of that world. So I do feel like I was underutilized in high school a little bit because I was seen for being derpy, not bright. And it didn't help that having a 504 plan didn't really impress people into thinking you're smart at the time either. At that time, it was something to sort of be ashamed of. But now looking back, a healthier way to respond to how I reacted to what that teacher said would have been to still care. She was one teacher, and I see that now. It's really hard on me now because I look back at that and I think of how many dumb decisions I made at that time as a young, teenager. And I have to give myself grace. My frontal lobe hadn't fully formed yet. To this day, I am still learning, and I do still regret those decisions that I made back in high school, that I didn't take it seriously enough. I didn't show people that I cared enough. And so now all I can do is be better when I'm faced with stressful or disencouraging situations, um, and hope that I'm not the same girl that I was when I was 16. And I don't think I am.
Yeah, I think high school is kind of a tough subject for a lot of people, but it's kind of good in a way that you had that learning experience kind of early on, and you do get to learn from it now. So, while not ideal that you were essentially disrespected. Um, it is nice to be able to look back on that in hindsight now with some clarity and hopefully prevent that from happening again to you and also probably to your kids. Like you know what to look for in those situations as well. So there is a silver lining there if we can make one.
There is. Actually, one thing I do want to add to that is that I wish I wouldn't have been so disrespectful
Mm,
whenever I was being disrespected.
sure.
So learning to not react that way.
Hmm. So going from the burnout to the like bored side of things, we can't walk this tightrope for any length of time without falling to one side or the other eventually. That's just how it's going to be. Work will be stressful at times. We'll take on too much. Work will be boring at times and we get complacent. It's more a matter of doing something about it when you find yourself in either camp. Sometimes there needs to be a reset, a vacation, a retreat, a certification course, a conference, something that wakes you up. And sometimes you just need a change.
You dropped the term professional development a minute ago, and I want to dive into that a little more. A lot of companies have professional development budgets, and all too often it just sits there, unused. If there's something you're excited to learn, tell your supervisor. You might need to outline some potential benefits for the organization, but a lot of bosses out there want to see you as an engaged worker excited to learn.
I've had several bosses like that. Unfortunately, I usually didn't take them up on the offer at the time because there was always plenty to manage with their own ideas for me. I have historically been somebody greatness is thrust upon rather than someone seeking it for myself. But I absolutely encourage everyone to explore certifications, classes, and new projects when you have the autonomy to do so.
In addition to learning new things, you're also showing initiative. That's going to be beneficial when review time comes. Heather, other than scheduled performance reviews, is there an optimal time to ask for raises and or promotions?
There's no hard and fast rule, but you want to pick your moment carefully. Performance review time is the easiest. However, if you have a particularly impressive win, strike while the iron is hot. Let's say you absolutely smashed a quarterly sales goal, or you won a lucrative grant, or you signed a significant number of members the last month. Whatever the scenario, make note of it. First, add it to your resume. You do it for the resume, Neera.
Do it for the resume. I say it all the time now.
um, we don't want to forget that step. So make sure it's on there for future use. But after that, if you think you've shown success in your role after a fair amount of time, take your evidence to the boss. Set a meeting, highlight the work, and make your pitch. Remember, this is also a negotiation. So even if you don't get what you set out for, you might find a mutually beneficial compromise.
Do you think this is acceptable anytime, or should you wait for there to be an opening internally that you want?
If there is an opening you want, that's a great time to throw your hat in the ring. But you can still plant the seed without existing vacancies. Consider what title and role you want and or consider the money you want. Don't be ridiculous about it and once again check market rates for what you're after. But I once asked for my own title and raise by describing the needs for a comms director. We didn't have one. So it took a few months and I had to backfill my old position, but we made it work. I know that's not always possible, but I think it's more possible than people think.
What do you do if you attempt this conversation for a new title, more money, better benefits, and it goes poorly? Like your boss is mad about it.
That's a very real fear I think we all have in these circumstances. But I want to emphasize again that it's largely in how you approach them. You set the tone here. Be confident, but not demanding. Again, make sure you've been there long enough and made enough progress that it's deserved. Um, and be ready to negotiate if they're amenable and be ready to accept no graciously if it's just not in the cards.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
No, no, you can't. Um, Unless you have a government job with scheduled step increases, your promotions and raises are usually solely in the hands of your supervisors. There's this scene in the show Mad Men that I always think of in these types of conversations, and I'm going to describe it because that's who I am as a person. I'll try to be succinct though. So, for those unfamiliar, Don Draper is the creative director for an ad agency, and Peggy Olson is an ambitious young woman who was hired as a secretary but managed to become the company's first woman copywriter. At some point, very early in her copywriter position, I think Dawn pitches one of her ideas to a client without giving her credit. Peggy is angry, and the disagreement comes to a head. Peggy argues that Dawn doesn't appreciate her. He doesn't say thank you. He's not moving her up fast enough, etc. Dawn shouts back, "That's what the money's for. That's what the money's for." It's a very great scene. Um, and it's ridiculous to be less than a year into your career and counting your ideas. Everything is an opportunity, and you should be thanking me for giving you another day. So yeah.
Yowza.
Yeah. So obviously Dawn handles this super poorly, but there are nuggets of truth in there. I'm sorry, all of you Peggy stands. I love Peggy too. My reading of the show in general, because I've watched it so many times, Peggy is eager and driven and talented, but she doesn't respect leadership. She's impatient and she thinks she's always right. And the lesson we learn here is that you can't walk into a functioning, successful environment with 2 minutes of experience and expect to move up the ladder. You have to put in the work and the time. Don't be taken advantage of and don't stay somewhere you aren't respected, but recognize that your ideas might not always be the best ones and learn to be a team player.
Learning how to be a team player will help you the most in your career, life, and just well being. Nobody wants to be around someone selfish and rude who only thinks of themselves. Apply that to work. When you're working, help your coworkers if you have a chance in your schedule. It pays to be genuinely nice,
Mhm.
exponentially, in more ways than one. Being able to collaborate says more about you than it does if you can just compete with everyone you see.
Mhm.
That's not impressive. That's just nature. I want to see you work well with others, not fight with them.
Now, at the end of the day, if you've done all that and you've put in your time and it's not getting recognized, maybe it's time to take your talent elsewhere. And full disclosure here, I am a recovering company loyalist. I used to think it was worth it to grow in one place, to show loyalty, to dedicate yourself to a specific team. And as long as you keep growing and you like it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that path. However, statistically, job hoppers make more money. And the way it works out like that is because raises are smaller and harder to come by than they used to be. You have a better chance at a pay bump by negotiating a higher starting salary at a new organization. Once you do this a few times, it's going to add up to somebody who stayed in that position 3 positions ago long term. It's unfortunate, but many employers aren't focused on retaining strong talent. They put more resources into attracting new talent when employees leave. The good organizations don't operate that way. And I have a handful of friends in the organizational leadership and coaching space who advocate for changing that standard. But right now, this is just kind of where we are.
So, do hiring managers still consider job hopping a red flag?
I'm sure plenty do, but I think others are recognizing the climate and they understand the concern of stagnation. Another way to think of it, though, is more from a personal perspective. You have nothing to lose by trying. Go where you can grow. Priorities change, people change. It can be really hard to start a new chapter, but reflect on those choices with thoughtful consideration before you make any big decisions. Consult with trusted peers, mentors, friends, or family. And remember that you can never be 100% certain of any choice that you're making. Some of it has to be faith in yourself.
I do want to mention if you're in technology, many technology positions go through contract work, think game development work. In this case, it's pretty common to have quick contracts, 6 months. So if that's your realm, having many development projects with different groups isn't seen as job hopping. That's just the way technology is played.
Mhm.
Um, when you're in technology, keep track of how long your contract is. And when your contract is starting to run out, you should start trying to make sure you still have a job in case there is downsizing. Something I've seen people utilize in technology is basically around their review time, they post what projects have been going well for them on their LinkedIn. And that's a great idea because if their contract isn't extended, they've already updated the whole network about what they've been doing. So they just prime the pump in case they need to be on the job search again.
Mhm. I was recently eavesdropping on a call Matt had with someone because I'm nosy and opinionated, so don't judge. Um, but it was super relevant to this conversation, so I'm outing myself. This close contact is a federal worker facing some uncertainty in his field. So he's trying to find the most secure branch and position to keep doing what he loves. He mentioned one position at a local branch that he's worked out of for years. He loves the team, but it's a little bit more risky overall. That said, he knows the office, this job, these people. The other option is to relocate about 3 to 4 hours away. He doesn't know this office as well, but he has some experience with them. Everything he knows he likes. There's also a bit more security at this branch and more growth opportunities. Obviously, he applies for both, but his question was more about which he should take if by chance he got two offers.
Did you take the phone from Matt and jump in? Because I feel like you would do that.
No, you should be very proud. I obviously just rapid texted Matt my answers for him to relay. Thank you very much.
Fine, you can just take the calls from me and utilize your strengths.
In a situation like this, people get caught up in the what ifs way too soon. It's like decision fatigue and fear of rejection sort of stop them from taking that first step. And in this person's case, he would have to apply for both jobs, interview for both, and get an offer from both before an issue would actually arise. By that point, he will have a pretty solid understanding of both options and he could discuss it with his family. If you're in a similar scenario, please remember that you aren't cheating on one job for another. Cast a wide net, learn about each position, and make informed decisions once you have all the information in front of you. The chances of getting two offers back to back are kind of slim, but not impossible. If you're in a final round for multiple jobs and you get one offer, first rank order your possibilities. If this is your first choice, congratulations, you're done. If, however, you prefer another one and you're still in the running, ask for time to think before accepting. Then ask your first choice where they are in the decision making process because you got an offer and you really feel in tune with their company. This does two things. It makes you more attractive to them because someone else wants you, and it should speed up their timeline. If you can't get an answer from your other choices within a couple days, take the first offer. The goal here is to make sure you land somewhere, right? So take what you're offered unless you have the privilege of waiting.
What if you take the first job and then your first choice extends an offer later?
I think that's what everyone is afraid of, and it does happen sometimes. Um, I'm going to say something that employers don't like, so get ready for this. Leave and take the first choice. Life is too short. Now, there's a correct way to do that that won't burn bridges too badly, but it's still an awkward conversation. You can't get around that. First, explain to the first choice that you want to accept, but you've just started somewhere else. Ask for time to diplomatically disengage. Then go to the employer you signed with. Be gracious, be apologetic, and explain that while you are grateful for the opportunity, somewhere else suits you better right now. Offer to stay on for a couple weeks if you're in the middle of something. Offer to help them repost the position. However, you can be helpful, show them you are a person of integrity and try to make the change easier for them. Check in with the first choice to see what flexibility they can offer. They want to hire someone with integrity as well, and it would look bad if they saw you flake on another organization to jump ship and join them. What would stop you from treating them the same way?
Nothing. I'm just saying nothing. Nothing at all.
Absolutely nothing. And with that, I want to end today's conversation with our question from the audience. Neera, who do we have?
Jeffrey asks, what can companies do to attract more women and demonstrate they are a safe and supportive environment for potential employees?
Man, I love this question for so many reasons.
He's
um,
lovely.
for one thing, this is our first question coming from the employer's perspective, which is nice. And for another, this is a man asking how to demonstrate inclusion. So thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. Um, we're 4 episodes into this, and I hope everyone recognizes that we've been very intentional about our descriptions for this podcast. We're trying to coach all people. This is a conversation for everyone. However, we, Neera and I, are working women, and we have a slight tilt toward the experiences and obstacles women tend to face more than men in the workplace. So, despite our attempt at being a platform for all people, I think this question really deserves our attention.
You mentioned in episode 2, I think, that some job postings list disclaimers encouraging women and minorities to apply. That's a good first step towards inclusion.
Yes, I love those posts. They're like a little nudge when someone may be skeptical of their abilities. I think it's important that we work on how we encourage applicants and how we indicate what the job really requires. Women also require more flexibility in the workplace because they are frequently caregivers as well. Paid family leave, flexible work from home schedules, and other clear benefits indicate the company is putting its money where its mouth is. Another thing I've seen DEI directors advocate for is making sure to source talent from where the talent is. An example I saw was posting job listings in a Facebook group for moms. This is a creative way to show an audience they are who you're looking for outside of standard practices.
A large factor of your happiness at work is related to how it makes you feel. When you wake up, do you hate to get up and go there? Are you dreading it? Is someone there treating you inappropriately? Workplace unhappiness, no matter what you're dealing with, will show up in your health. So, we actually had a huge section of it in my psychology class. I'm finishing up with WV Rocks. If you have the chance to make the decision about where you'll be working, make sure it's a healthy one for you. I've been in spaces where I thought it was going to be a great fit, and then it was everything but that. But it's led me to where I am now, which is exactly where I want to be.
Hmm. On that note, I think that's all we have for now. Of course, there are so many aspects of work life we've not covered, but I'm excited for our upcoming guest episodes where we get to dig into those things in more detail. Thank you for sticking with us and stay tuned for what's next.
Join us for our next episode, Plan for Your Future, where we'll be talking about long term and strategic planning with our guest, Dr. Sarah Davis. Working Women is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube, so find us wherever you find your podcasts and music. Thank you.